But that's all the announcements that I have. I have the privilege of introducing our speaker for this evening. He's not only a really close friend, but one of the funniest people I know. His ability to take common everyday scenarios and turn them into comedy gold is just one of the many talents that he has. But aside from his comic roots, he also has gone through a journey of battling cancer, loss of family members, and hardship that tested his faith but only made him stronger. Get ready to laugh, get ready to cry, and get ready to be ministered to, as I now have the privilege of turning the microphone over to the one, the only, Chris from Pennsville.
Share Coke with Steve. You still want it?
No, thanks.
You know, that's what I don't get about Coke. I mean, this program or whatever you want to call it that they're running, it actually promotes bad health habits. I mean, think about it. Share Coke with Brittany. I don't know who Brittany is. You really think I'm gonna give her something to drink? Get out of here! I ain't gonna share nothing. But and then they have, share Coke with family. Let me tell you, I got a huge family. If I shared this 20-ounce bottle with my family, you know how much I get? Nothing. So I want to thank Tim for having me here tonight. I was going back and forth about what I was going to do, trying to write a couple of sets, just trying to figure out where God wanted me to take this. And I do have to tell you that being a Christian and being a comic is unbelievably hard. I mean, as a comic, you're going to upset somebody all the time. It's just gonna happen. Somebody's gonna get insulted. It's just how it is. But, being a Christian in general is hard. And let me tell you, I learned that the other day. I travel a lot for work. Let me tell you, driving up 295, and you got them old people in the fast lane that want to do 30 miles an hour. And it's just like you're driving up the road, and it cuts you off. And then it's like 30. I'm like, seriously? So I'm trying to stay calm. And you know how it is. All of a sudden I'm like, you know what? God bless you! You son of a loving God! Come on, you're kidding me! So, you know what? I can't do this, no. All right. I'm sorry, guys. All right. I'm going to give you my testimony. Tim asked me to touch on this, but it's been eating at me. Back in 2007, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. It was actually 5 days before my 1-year anniversary with my wonderful wife. It was a very tough time for me. I was a new Christian, new in my faith. And let me tell you, it was rough, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I blame God for what happened to me. I really did. I can't say I totally walked away from God at that time, but I was about as far as you could get without walking away completely. And let me tell you, it was a rough time, and I don't know how I did it. I went through the surgery, which that was the first ever surgery, not even just major surgery, any surgery that I'd ever had in my life. And they told me, I was diagnosed on a Tuesday. I went and saw the urologist on a Wednesday, and he told me, we have to take it tomorrow. So here in a span of 3 days, my life had been completely flipped upside down. So needless to say, I told him, I said, you know what, I need a day to let this all sink in. That was the worst mistake of my life. I should have just done it and gotten it over with. That Thursday was the longest day of my life. Sitting there and just thinking about everything that had happened to me and everything that was going to happen to me. I was scared. I was scared. They didn't know how bad the cancer was, if it had spread. They weren't sure. I asked if they were going to do a biopsy. They said they didn't want to do a biopsy because if they did, there was a chance of rupturing the cancer or the tumor and it spreading throughout my body. So Friday morning I went in for the surgery. It ended up being, they told my wife it was going to be a 30-minute procedure. And what was it, 3 hours later, they finally come out and tell her that I was out of surgery and I was doing well. It was, like I said, it was rough. Like, it was mentally rough because, for lack of better terms, I felt like I was half the man I was before. A lot of my friends made jokes. I didn't hide the fact that I had testicular cancer. To me, it's nothing to hide. But there were a lot of jokes about being half the man I used to be and stuff like that. And like I said, I was so angry at God. This was his fault. I blamed him, and I blamed him every day. Well, they called me about a week later and they said, look, it was cancer. It ended up being stage 2 cancer. And that it actually had been contained in the testicles, so I should have been good. Well then, I told my wife, I said, I'm free and clear, I'm good, I did this. Well then, about 3 hours later, I get a phone call from a radiologist. My urologist wanted me to take a month of radiation. So of course, what did I do? I blamed God for it again. Why are you doing this to me? Why did you do this to me? Why did you allow this to happen to me? You're supposed to love me. How can you love me and allow something this bad to happen to me? So I went 5 days a week, every day for a month for radiation, and it was about a 3-hour process. Well, now I was driving to Delaware for work, coming home, and driving all the way out to Vineland for my radiation every day for a month. And still, I blame God. I took everything. I took all the praise that, hey, I did this on my own. I went to work every day. I did my radiation. There were days I was sick. I still went to work. Well, I guess it was about a year later, my mother-in-law and I were talking, and she says, Chris, how close are you to God? And I looked at her and I told her the truth. I said, we're not very close. I said, I blame him for what happened to me. How can a God love you and allow this to happen to you? And this was actually a night that I was actually going to a small group, a men's small group with a friend of mine who bugged me about going to church. He was like, just come out and check it out. So I was sitting there and talking to her, and she's like, well, what are you going to say to these guys? I said, honestly, I don't know. This isn't for me, but I'm going just to make him happy. I said, I'm just going to go and talk to these guys. So as I'm waiting for him to come pick me up, her and I are talking back and forth, and she goes, did you ever think that God didn't allow this to happen to you? Did you ever think you didn't do this alone? No, I didn't. But then as I sat there and I thought about it, I was like, there is no way, there's no possible way that I could have gone through 30 days of radiation, gone to work and not missed a day, been sick, and done it by myself. And she looked at me and she goes, there's your answer. So I did what any man would do. I went to my office, the bathroom. It's the only place you can get any privacy. And I just sat there on the edge of the tub. And just sat there, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I said, God, I'm sorry. I made this about me. I made this to be me being the victim, being your victim. And it kept coming back about the footprints in the sand. Those footprints weren't mine. That was him carrying me. And that was the day that I finally accepted Christ back into my life for good. And let me tell you, there have been bad things happening in my life. We lost a very close family member. A few years ago, my wife lost her brother. That was very tough. And just recently, my wife and I suffered a loss of our own. And it came about that I'm no longer doubting my faith. And I told her, I said, this happened for a reason. God did this for a reason. Okay, I actually have to go into this a little bit. My wife actually got pregnant, and she had a miscarriage. We were told with the issues that she had in her younger years, and with my cancer and the radiation, we weren't going to have kids. Well, here we are, almost 8 years later, after we get married, and we find out she's pregnant. How did that happen? It wasn't me. It wasn't her. It was him. So it came about, well, why did I have this miscarriage? Why did he give us this miracle baby and then take it away? Well, doing some research, we found out that if something is wrong with the baby's cells, the body will expel the baby. And I told her, I said, I couldn't understand what was going on. I told her, I said, there's a reason for this. Well, we figured that was all over and done with. And I was at work one day, I was heading home, and I get a phone call from Salem Memorial Hospital. And I'm like, why are they calling? So I pick up the phone, and it's my father-in-law. He said, your wife's in the hospital. They're not sure what's going on. Just get here when you can. Well, needless to say, I drove from Bristol, PA to Pennsville in a matter of 20 minutes. I get to the hospital. She had been there for about 3 hours, and finally the doctor comes in and he goes, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I can't figure it out. I don't know why you're having so much pain, but all your tests are showing you're pregnant again. How is that possible? She just had a miscarriage. So he said, look, I want you guys to go to Elmer. Go to Elmer Hospital, they're equipped for this. So we drive out to Elmer, and they put my wife on the bed, and they're hooking her up, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching these meters, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I don't pretend to be the smartest guy in the world. But being a firefighter, I know a little bit about medical issues. And I'm watching my wife's blood pressure drop. I'm literally watching her die right there in front of me. The nurse keeps telling me, there's nothing wrong. How can you tell me there's nothing wrong? Her blood pressure is 88/54. That's not normal. That's 40 points left. Oh, no, it's fine. Surgeons came in. They couldn't figure out what was going on. So they take her down, and they're like, look, we're keeping her overnight. We're going to take her in and do, some tests. We're going to do a chest x-ray and an ultrasound. And then we're going to send her upstairs to her room and watch her overnight. So they take her down. They do the tests, and her parents leave. Well, she comes out of the ultrasound room, and they're rushing her back to the ER. And I'm like, wait a second, guys. We're supposed to go upstairs. No, just wait. In the room she goes. So I'm standing there looking at her, and I'm like, what's going on? And next thing you know, 4 nurses come running in, practically knock me over. And I'm a big dude. I mean, and literally practically knocked me over. And hooking her up to oxygen, doing blood work, hooking IVs up to her. And I said, what's going on? And they said, the doctor will be in a minute. Well, next thing you know, here comes the surgeon. She comes running in. She's like, we got to do this now. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, it's a tubal pregnancy. Your wife's hemorrhaging. She's bleeding out inside. That was the scariest moment of my life. But for some reason, I felt calm about it because I knew she was in good hands with God. Well, the doctor, as on our way down to the operating room, we're signing paperwork. And my wife looks at the doctor. She goes, I'm not going to die, am I? The doctor goes, I'm not going to lose you. Well, we're in the recovery room or the prep room waiting to go in. And they told her she had to take all her jewelry off. She would not take her wedding rings off. She would not allow them to. She wanted me to. That's the last time I saw my wife before she went in. And I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I was scared to take her rings from her. And she said the last thing she heard from the doctor after the doctor said, "I'm not gonna lose you, honey," is as they were putting her under, the doctor said, "We need to do this. We need to do this now. We're losing her." Well, my church family, Pastor Steve, Tim, Vinny, Sam, everybody else, I told Pastor, and immediately he sent out a prayer text. For 3 hours, they prayed for my wife. Tim showed up at the hospital with food and just sat there with me. And I just sat there and prayed and prayed. And I said, "God, please, don't do this. Do not do this." I said, "Please, if you're going to take anybody, you take me." So, needless to say, I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and 3.5 hours later, still no word. Well, now I'm pacing up and down the hallway. I guarantee you I burnt a hole in that tile. So Tim's like, "You know what? I'm going to start making phone calls on this phone. I don't care. If they throw me out, they throw me out." So Tim starts dialing numbers. And he actually dialed the emergency number. He said, "Yeah, I'm trying to check on a friend of mine. It's an emergency." "No, you got the wrong number. You better knock off using his phone." So I see a nurse. I ask her, "Oh, she's doing fine. They're finishing up now." Half hour later, still no word. Another nurse. "Oh yeah, they're still working on it." Okay, somebody needs to tell me the truth. What's going on here? Well, finally, I'm sitting in the waiting room and the phone rings. "Mr. Connolly, you can meet us up room 244. So, like I said, needless to say, they almost lost her. But she got out around 1:30 out of the operating room and was up in her room overnight. And I told her best friend was there, and I told them, I said, "Look, I need to go home and get a shower, and I need to pick up her car because my car is really, really rough. And it's a very rough ride. It's a sports car, so you know." So I came home and got my shower. I was back up there in less than an hour. I get up there, and I walk in, and the nurse looks at me, and she goes, "I don't know what's going on." And of course, my heart sinks. I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what's going on?" She goes, "She's in there. She's eating. She's talking. She's awake. She's alert." But she's like, "I've never seen this before. She's in there eating a burger from McDonald's that you left here." Who was that? It was God. Let me tell you, as much as your life might suck, as much as it might just be so bad right now, God's going to get you through it. Believe me, I know. God never said it was going to be easy. He just said, "I'll get you through it." You put your cares, you put your fears on me, and I will get you through it. So let me tell you, if somebody ever tells you that God doesn't exist, that God doesn't love you, that God is just something that somebody made up to make people live the right way, you send them to me. I'll sit them down and I'll tell them my story. And I guarantee you, I will make a believer out of them. So with that, Tim, I know I was supposed to do some jokes. I did a few, but like I said, this has been weighing on me a lot on what I needed to do. And this is what God told me I needed to do. Now, I'm going to ask a personal question, and you guys don't have to answer. Has anybody here not accepted Christ in their life yet? That's good. Does anybody here, and I'm sure you do, know anybody who hasn't accepted Christ in their life yet? Do me a favor. Tell them my story. Tell them my story and get them to be a believer. it's not about the 100 lost. It's about that one saved. And if we all can save one person, the world's a better place. So with that, I thank you. You guys, sorry, I didn't go a little further with my jokes, but it came over me that I needed to do this. So just thank you for listening. God bless you.
Once again, we want to thank Chris for sharing his testimony and bearing his soul. He has gone through a lot, and that took a lot of courage for him to do that. He's still very trepidatious sometimes about public speaking about his life, so we want to thank him one more time and give him a nice round of applause. Thank you so much, Chris. That was awesome.